A few years ago, David Bramwell's girlfriend left him for someone she described as younger but more mature. She also said he was self-centred and too wrapped up in his own projects. To get over the heartache, David set himself another project, to go off in search of Utopia. He spent a year visiting some of the world's most inspiring communities, and along the way encountered anarchists, singing plants, a dominatrix-run kingdom, the eighth wonder of the world, and a fully functioning time machine. He came back a changed man and wrote a very funny book about it. But exactly where and what are these extraordinary places?
And I heard about this community in Scotland called Findhorn where people sang and talked and meditated with plants. I'd heard that they'd grown things in soil that supposedly nothing can grow in because it's almost beach soil, and they'd grown the largest cauliflowers in the world.
This is the story of three people. Peter Caddy, ex-RAF man, in the middle, his wife Eileen on the right, and their good friend Dorothy on the left. It's the winter of 1962 and our heroes are down on their luck. Unemployed, they find themselves living in a cold, windy, desolate caravan park in the north of Scotland, Findhorn Bay. They're not planning on staying there long, but Eileen's getting the voice of God, something which has happened to her before. But she can't hear what God's trying to say, because not only are the three of them and their three kids inside this tiny caravan, but there's also a noisy RAF base next door and jets are screaming overhead every 20 minutes. So she asks God if God could suggest anywhere quieter for her to go to tune in to his message. And God, being God, did have a good idea. And he, or she, suggested the caravan site toilets between the hours of 4 and 6 in the morning.
So that was when I said to God, where do you expect me to have this peace and quiet? And I was told to go down to the public toilets.
So dutifully, Eileen went and sat there each morning. And now she could hear what God was trying to say. And God's message was this: build a magic garden and they will come. And so all plans of escape are thrown out the window. They decide to stay put and start digging. But it's not easy soil to build a garden in. I mean, it's windy and infertile and sandy, the soil there. They need more help. So Dorothy decides to get in touch with what she calls the devas, or the spirits of the plants, to ask them for some practical gardening tips. And conversations with the plant devas went something like this. How is the spinach, spinach deva?
If you want the spinach leaves to be stronger, you're going to have to grow the plants wider apart.
How are the tomatoes, tomato deva?
You fucked up with the tomatoes. Give them more liquid manure. I can try to protect their life force, but don't expect miracles.
Thanks to the plant devas and Peter and Eileen and God, by late spring, the magic garden was in full bloom. They managed to grow over 100 different types of fruit and vegetable. And stories began to circulate the village of Findhorn of carrots the size of a Labrador's leg, tomatoes the size of a schoolboy's head. Pretty soon, Findhorn's magic garden is part of the hippie circuit. The hippies are going to Marrakesh and they're going to San Francisco, and they're also heading to the north of Scotland to see the magic garden. Money starts to pour in. People turn up, and Peter Caddy and Eileen and Dorothy just give them a spade and a caravan and tell them where to dig. By the middle of the 70s, they've bought the caravan park that they were stranded in. They've also bought the local hotel which they've been sacked from. And with some spare change, they also bought a small island off the coast of Scotland. Nowadays, Findhorn is the UK's largest and most successful spiritual community. There are over 600 people living there. Most of the caravans have been phased out in favour of these beautiful eco-houses, some of them made out of the remains of the barrels of the local whisky distillery. Go to Findhorn nowadays and any talk of direct communion with fruit and vegetables and God has all but diminished. But they haven't lost their purpose, as they say, to honour and respect God and nature and to appreciate our relationship with both. If you get to dig the magic garden as well, work in the garden as I did, you may find the fruit and vegetables to be of sobering proportions, but Findhorn now claim to be directing that kind of energy elsewhere. Findhorn is now a sophisticated eco-village focusing on sustainability, recycling, sharing and environmental issues. It even has Europe's first environmental sewage treatment, known as the Living Machine. Since Eileen's death in 2006, the original toilet that she communed with God on has been preserved with a little plaque that says Eileen's Throne. They've got a sense of humour. And people make pilgrimages to Findhorn to visit the original caravan that the trio once lived in, which also has been lovingly preserved, along with a plaque which reads Original Caravan. If the Carry On team had done Carry On Up the Commune, I don't think it could have been more surreal than the actual story of Findhorn. How a windswept caravan park in the north of Scotland became the unlikely site of a flourishing New Age community. All thanks to an ex-RAF man and his wife, Eileen, communicating with God in the caravan site's municipal toilets. So what did I learn? Well, firstly, that God communicates in mysterious ways. And secondly, that just spending time hanging out with people and listening to their stories, as I did at Findhorn, builds empathy and compassion. And to be honest, what more important lesson could I have learned than that? There's an emergency at the local garden centre. Spinach plants have taken over. They've got the place surrounded. You're needed right away. Bring secateurs.